Good morning to everybody. How you doing? Hope all's well. Keep up the beautiful work. The sun is shining. Hashem should shine his berachan. All of Am Yisrael. He should make peace in the world for our hostages, for our land. I think the only answer is Mashiach. Even though the beepers were fun, and even though things are going well, but we really need them in warp speed, Be'ezrat Hashem, Yitbarach, or ludicrous speed, as they say. We need Mashiach to come. And in merit of you guys learning Torah and all the good deeds that you do, Hashem will make the Mashiach come. Be'ezrat Hashem Yitbarach. Today's class is dedicated to Refuah Yaakov Bat Simcha and everyone that needs Refuah shelemah. Please, Hashem. Just like now, we are getting ready for Pesach. We're getting ready for Nisan. Yetziat Mitzrayim. Hashem took us out of Egypt. And Hashem said the famous pasuk, Kol mahala asher samti b'Mitzrayim lo asim alecha ki ani Hashem rofecha. Any disease that I put in Egypt, I will not put on you because I am Hashem, your healer. Did you ever wonder, in middle of the Haggadah, see some people have ants in their pants in the Haggadah, they can't wait to finish, they do the Quran version, they finish Shulchan Orech and the Afikoman by the time 9:30 comes. But Baruch Hashem, our people, they know what the Haggadah is, they know what the night of Pesach is, and they take advantage of such a beautiful, beautiful night. In middle of the Haggadah, there is a three-way, a couple of rabbis that say different opinions regarding how many makot were really in Egypt. We know they're called 10 makot, but was it 50? Was it 100? Was it 250? Etc. Who cares what the number was? Why do we have to know what the number was? Just say the makot with 10 and had many parts. Like, why do we make such a big deal of it? And the answer is because of what we just said. Hashem said, any disease, any sickness I put in Mitzrayim, I will not put on Am Yisrael. So now, the more, the merrier. That's why you have rabbis that are saying 200, 250, etc. Because now that there are 250 that they had, there's another 250 that we're not going to have. Be'ezrat Hashem Yitbarach. When we see the sun starting to shine and we hear the spring trying to sneak through, we think of a beautiful mitzvah, which we call Birkat Ha'ilanot. Rosh Chodesh Nisan is coming up. We're already more than halfway through the month of Adar, and we're going to read Parashat Parah. This Shabbat is mentioned, and then the Shabbat after that, we're going to read Parashat HaChodesh. Usually Vayakel and Pekudeh are together unless it's a leap year. Not too frequently do we have the Vayakel and Pekudeh separated and it's not a leap year. And this year is not a leap year and we're still reading them separate from one another, which like we said yesterday, there's a lot of different things that happened this year, but we want the Mashiach to come. That will be the most different thing. Be'ezrat Hashem Yitbarach. Long story short, we have Parashat HaChodesh after Parashat Parah, and Rosh Chodesh Nisan is coming up. We know that Rosh Chodesh Nisan is the first month of the Jewish calendar. Now, there's a question that comes up. There's a machloket in the Gemara. When was the world created? Was the world created in Tishrei, or was the world created in Nisan? Rabbi Yoshua and Rabbi Eliezer. We technically, it seems like, we follow the opinion that the world was created in Tishrei. Why? Because we have Rosh Hashanah in Tishrei. That's the new year. Why is it a new year? Simple. Because it was the day the world was created, and every day, every year on that day, we celebrate, and we all have judgment because that's when the world was created. Actually, it's really when the human being was created. The human being was created 6 days into creation, so Rosh Hashanah is the sixth day of creation of the world. So it seems like for sure, since it's our Rosh Hashanah and our day of judgment, then for sure that it was, we hold like the opinion that holds the world was created in Tishrei. But Hamadia is a great question. We have the machloket. One rabbi, like we said, says Nisan, and one rabbi says Tishrei, and it seems like we hold the answer is Tishrei. But how Rabino Grande is a great question. What is the great question? Every question Hamadia asked was great. But what's the question in our subject? The question is, how come there's a halacha in Masechet Berachot that the rabbi who holds the world was created in Tishrei does not say his opinion in this halacha? Which halacha are we referring to? We know every single month we make Birkat HaLevana, and it's a protection and it's a beautiful beracha. It's already too late to make it this month, but Be'ezrat Hashem will make it in Nisan as well. Some people never ever miss parashat. They never miss Birkat HaLevana from when they were bar mitzvah. In Israel, it's a little easier, but in America, even some people never miss it. It's a beautiful, beautiful beracha. Once I was giving a class in Wisconsin, and I mentioned Birkat HaLevana, and there was an adult that never even heard of Birkat HaLevana, believe it or not. Someone who's Shomer Shabbat, and he never heard of it. So, of course, thank God we all heard of it. We make it every month. Why do we make a beracha on the moon to Hashem about the moon every month? Because the moon renews itself. In 2 weeks, as we mentioned, we're going to read HaChodesh Hazeh Lachem Rosh Chodashim. What? How do we know which calendar the Jewish people are supposed to follow? It says in the Torah, HaChodesh Hazeh Lachem. We have 2 calendars in the year. There's the solar and the lunar. How do we know which one we're supposed to follow? We follow the lunar, as we already know. Our dates follow the moon. However, how do we know? Because it's called Chodesh. Why is a month called a Chodesh? The answer is simple, because it comes from the word Chadash. Chadash means new. The moon renews itself every single month. And from Hashem saying, HaChodesh Hazeh Lachem Rosh Chodashim, we follow the lunar calendar. So we make a beracha on the moon every month because it renews itself. Every item of nature we make a beracha on when it renews itself. We make a beracha on the trees. We make a beracha when we see a rainbow. We make a beracha when we hear thunder and lightning per storm. If you are in the middle of if we see a thunderstorm, and God should watch us all, we should all be safe. Every time you hear thunder, you don't make a new beracha, obviously. One time per storm. And if it happens to be in the summer, this happens a lot of times. In the morning, there could be a thunderstorm. You make a beracha on the thunder and lightning. Then it clears up, and the sun will come out today. And later in the afternoon, once again, it gets all cloudy and a thunderstorm comes again. Then you do make a beracha on thunder and lightning, even though you made it that day, because it's a new thunderstorm. However, if it stayed rainy the entire day, then you only make one beracha on thunder and one on lightning. So every item that renews itself, we make a beracha. We're going to talk about Birkat HaIlanot. We make a beracha. And we know that every 28 years, we make a beracha on the sun. The last time we made it, I think, was about 11, 12 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. I bless everyone. They should make it at least another 3-4 times. Be'ezrat Hashem Yitbarach. But I remember the time before that. I remember in 2nd grade in school, where they made the beracha on the sun, and they gave out Dixie cup ice cream. How you doing today? Baruch Hashem, the kids are spoiled. You give them an ice cream in school, shibihueh. But back then, we got one every 28 years. The reason why they gave the Dixie cups was because it was half vanilla, half chocolate, yani lightness and darkness on the day that we make the beracha on the sun. I'll never forget that. But anyway, back to our subject, we make the beracha on the sun every 28 years. Why every 28 years? Because it takes 28 years for the sun to be in the same spot. Now, the sun doesn't really move. The stars and the constellations and the planets, they all move. And when they're all in the exact spot, the same way when Hashem created the world, that takes 28 years. If you read the Rashi on that Gemara in Masechet Berachot, with making the Beracha on the sun, you will see everything is in the Torah. He knew more than all the astronauts and all the wise people in NASA and all there's astronauts coming down today. God should watch everyone and keep everyone safe. But anyway, long story short, the sun renews itself every 28 years, and we make a beracha. When do we make the beracha? In the month of Nisan, because that's when the sun was created. That's when the world was created. And we make it on a Wednesday. ¿Por qué Wednesday? Because on Wednesday is the day that Hashem created the luminaries, the sun and the moon and the stars, etc. So now, since he created on a Wednesday, we make the beracha on a Wednesday. And since it was in Nisan, we make the beracha in Nisan. We only have 4 hours to make the beracha. Once 4 hours pass in the day, halasna. Somebody snoozes in that situation, they really lose. They got to wait 28 years. And if it's a cloudy day and no one could see the sun, then we got to wait another 28 years. I told my wife back then, I said, I think I'll go up in a hot air balloon or something to go up to the top, to above the clouds to make the beracha. But thank God everyone made it. It was the most fabulous beracha. All the synagogues, people went up to the roof and they made the beracha, and it was magnificent. It was even Erev Pesach, if I'm not mistaken. Yishtabach Shemo La'ad. Anyway, the question is, if the rabbi who holds, one rabbi holds that the world was created in Tishrei, when we have Rosh Hashanah, so how come he doesn't say, whoops, we don't make the beracha in Nisan, we make the beracha in Tishrei? Why doesn't he say that? Why does he agree to make the beracha on the sun in the month of Nisan? Doesn't he hold the sun was created in Tishrei? The world was created in Tishrei? Is that a great question? And the answer is, there's no machloket when the physical world was created. Hamadiyah answers, the world was created in Nisan. Everybody agrees to that. The physical world. So then what's the machloket? The machloket is when in Tishrei, Hashem sort of made the world conceive. Hashem made the blueprints, like a woman becoming expecting. That's when the child was really created. Even though we celebrate a birthday when we come out of the world, but when we when we're conceived and Hashem puts us in our mother's stomach, that's really when we were created. So the world on Rosh Hashanah, we say in Amidah, Hayom Harat Olam. Hayom Harat Olam. What does Harat Olam mean? How do you say expecting in Hebrew? Herayon, Harat Olam. The world became expecting. And now the world was created. It was born in Nisan. So the machloket between the two rabbis isn't when the world was created, is which one has more significance, conception or being actually created. And that's the mahloket. So the physical world was created in Nisan. And that's why it's the beginning of the Jewish months. Now, technically, there's another question. If we count a Jewish New Year from Tishrei, when did Tashin Peh come? It came Rosh Hashanah. So it's a new year in Rosh Hashanah and Tishrei. So we're following when the world was conceived. So then why is Rosh Chodesh Nisan the first of the Jewish months? And the answer is, it wasn't always the first of the month, the first month of all of the months. Tishrei used to be. However, when we became a nation, Hashem took us out of Mitzrayim in the month of Nisan. You ask any little kid, what's your favorite month? Whatever month they say, you tell them, oh, because your birthday is in that month. Obviously, and the same thing over here. Yes, the new year is Tishrei, but the favorite month became the month with the birthday in it. And our birthday, we became a nation in the month of Nisan. That's why in the Haggadah we say Velo ayideh shaliach, velo ayideh malach. We don't say malach, velo ayideh shaliach. Hashem took us out himself. Why do we say not a malach and a shaliach? Well, there's many answers. One simple answer is our rabbis tell us because Egypt back then was so engulfed in impurity that if a malach went into Egypt, he would get influenced by the impurity. Believe it or not, even though there were malachei Kabbalah that came to destroy Mitzrayim, which Be'ezrat Hashem, in about a little less than a month, we will be reading the famous letter of Rav Shimshon Me'astrapoli. We'll talk about it closer to Pesach. We hope to be in Yerushalayim by then, but there's a Kabbalistic letter of the Makot that you must read Erev Pesach, and it says it's protection for the entire year to read that letter. You can read it all year long, but especially on Erev Pesach to read that item. And in there it talks about the gazillions of angels that came to Mitzrayim to do the destruction. But anyway, another reason why it says malach shaliach, because Hashem has many keys in the world, and he kept 3 keys for himself. He kept the keys of giving birth, the keys of Parnassah, which Hashem should bless everyone with Parnassah, Merubah Be'ezrat Hashem Yitbarach, and the key to life and being born. So now, since Hashem kept the key of us being born, of people being born, of babies being born, so he can't let a malach do it. And that's why we were the ones, he took us out without a malach from Mitzrayim, because we were a nation being born. A nation is born. And that's why Nisan became Hashem's favorite month. It's because we were born in that month. And that's why it was not with a malach, because Hashem, when it comes to people being born, Hashem does it himself. Yishtabach Shemo La'ad. So we have the month of Nisan coming. It's called Nisan because of the Nisim, the miracles that Hashem made in that month. And we know in the Haggadah Shel Pesach, there's a famous Mishnah, that this Mishnah is in Masechet Berachot, and the Mishnah tells us, R'maaseh b'Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, Harei ani keben 70 shana, v'lo zachiti shte'amer yisiat Mitzrayim balelot. Long story short, there's a pasuk that the Torah says, V'man tizkor et yom tzetecha me'eretz Mitzrayim, kol yemei hayecha. That word "kol" is extra. If I told you you have to remember coming out of Mitzrayim, yemei hayecha means the days of your lives. So that means when I tell someone the days of your life, what does that mean? That means every day. So why does it have to say kol yemei hayecha? That's why when we read the Mishnah, it says yemei hayecha hayamim, kol yemei hayecha halelot. The word "kol" is extra to teach us that we say Yisiat Mitzrayim in the day and at night. BTW, what is the Mitzrayim that we're talking about referring to? And the answer is Vayomer in the Shema. Vayomer Amorani Shem Elokechem Asher Hotzeti Etchem Me'eretz Mitzrayim. So we say Vayomer in the daytime in Shema and at nighttime because of that pasuk, because of the extra word "kol." But there's an opinion, that's the opinion of Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah and Ben Zoma. However, who else? There's another opinion, the Chachamim. What do the Chachamim say? The Chachamim say, Yemei hayecha haolam hazeh. Nowadays, kol yemei hayecha lahavi yemot HaMashiach. The extra word "kol" teaches us that when Mashiach comes, we still have to talk about Yetziat Mitzrayim. But the question comes up, why wouldn't we talk about Mitzrayim when Mashiach comes? We talk about Mitzrayim 24/7 anyway. Why are we not going to talk about Mitzrayim if Mashiach comes? You know why? Because the miracles are going to be 1,000,000 times greater than when we came out of Mitzrayim. How amazing are the miracles that we had in Yetziat Mitzrayim. You talk about it, you read the Midrashim, you hear what happens, you could talk about it for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours. And all those miracles are a tiny drop in the sea compared to the miracles that will happen when Mashiach comes. Yishtabach Shemo La'ad. So we're going to need a reminder to talk about Mitzrayim when Mashiach comes, because the nature would be that we're not going to talk about Mitzrayim. If a guy finds $1,000 in the street, Bijanin, he gets excited. It could buy him a half of an egg nowadays. He's in a good mood. However, if the next day he finds 300 million, then he's not really going to remember the 1,000. He has the 300 million. The same thing over here. The miracles of Mitzrayim were like $1,000 compared to 300 million. So we're not going to really talk about it by nature. But when the Torah tells us we have to, so we're going to have to follow the halakha and still talk about Mitzrayim. At the end of the day, that's when we were born, and that's when we became a nation. So that's regarding the month of Nisan. As mentioned yesterday, some people don't eat matzah from the day after Purim all the way till the Seder. Are you allowed to eat? Yes. We mentioned as well, there are people that go matzah shopping. There are a lot of company matzahs out there, and they want to find the right porridge. This one's too cold, this one's too hot, so they take a little taste. We're lucky that Sephardic tradition says to make mizonot instead of hamotzi, even though the tradition is to make mizonot and not hamotzi. However, Batya would always try, if he did have to eat matzah during the year, he would make hamotzi on bread and then eat it in the middle of the meal. This way he fulfilled all the opinions. He also did that with many things. He was obviously, even though the halakha is one thing, but we try to be as strict as we can if it's not going to be a burden to anyone. And the rule of thumb is, as we always say, you could be strict on yourself, but you can't be strict on others. Sometimes in Wisconsin, you have a spouse becoming more religious, going to classes, which is beautiful, but sometimes, and not even Wisconsin, yalla, on planet Mars, when you have one spouse becoming more religious a little faster than the other one, it could cause some strife. So we have to do things with chokhmah. Life is a game of chess, as we know. You make one move, you got to think 20 moves ahead. You don't think for the moment. And that's with everything, especially relationships. So anyway, back to our subject. We have Nisan coming, and we are going to go and make the beracha on the trees in the month of Nisan. We mentioned the Gemara that says you go outside in the month of Nisan and you make the beracha on the sun. Well, guess what? The Gemara also says to make the beracha in the month of Nisan on the trees as well, the trees that are budding. Why Nisan? Halachically, simple, because the trees bud, the spring is in Nisan, B'Chodesh Aviv. That's where the concept of leap year comes into effect, as we know. Because even though we follow the moon calendar, the lunar calendar is approximately 10 days less than the solar calendar. And the seasons follow the solar calendar. Spring, fall, winter, summer follow the solar calendar, the sun. So now our holidays are 10 days later, 10 days later every single year. But it could keep moving and moving, and then it could be we could have Hanukkah in middle of August. We could have Rosh Hashanah in middle of in the springtime. However, how come we don't have that? Because the Torah says Pesach has to be in the spring. So when we see it's too cold, Nisan time, the rabbis used to add another month of Adar, which we call a leap year. And as mentioned in the beginning of the class, this year is not a leap year. We had one last year already, or in the past, and we're going to have one soon again, Bezrat Hashem. But anyway, the simple understanding is because the spring and the trees bud in the month of Nisan, so we make the beracha in the month of Nisan. If you have a country that the climates are different and the trees bud in the winter or a different time than Nisan, so then can you make the beracha then? It's a machloket. There are some that say Nisan is only Nisan. Even if your trees bud before or after, it's only in Nisan. And if the trees all have fruits in the month of Nisan, then there's no making Birkat Eilanot. But others say, no, of course you can make it in another month. And no problem, as long as that's when the trees are budding. So we have the two opinions. Which opinion do we follow? The answer is we follow both together, meaning to say we don't make it before Nisan. If you see a couple of trees budding, we know almond trees bud already in Tu B'Shvat. That's how the song goes. Hashkedia porachat. The almond tree starts to bud. However, we don't make it before Nisan. But if we see that in Nisan, they still didn't bud, there was one year that it was so cold that it didn't bud in Nisan. We had to all make it in Iyar after Nisan. And according to Halacha, you are allowed to. We will talk more in the future on the subject, but one more point. According to the Kabbalah and the mystical concepts that we have out there, the reason for Birkat Ilanot is because of the nishamot that come down from the upper worlds that might come into a fruit that we need to make a tikkun. And Birkat Ilanot saves those nishamot from coming down before they even come down. Obviously, it's much better to stay up in heaven and not come down to a fruit and then have to have a tikkun. So we make Birkat Ilanot. So since the nishamot come down in the month of Nisan, Kabbalistically, it's only in the month of Nisan as well. We'll continue the Lord's another time. For now, we'll call it a day. Hope everyone has the greatest day. Keep up the beautiful, beautiful work. Be'ezrat Hashem Yitbarach. May Am Yisrael only hear good news for all of us. Be'ezrat Hashem. Good things for the world. Peace in the world. I hope everyone has the greatest day. Take care. Bye.